I've lived in Taghmon my whole life, and almost every day I learn something new about it. It's a very special place to me. All the stories you hear, the deep history, the interesting people you meet. All villages have their own lore, and all are special in their own right, but this is my village, so it's the most special of all of them. I wasn't around for most of Taghmon's history. Well, neither was anyone else still alive. The village is well over 1,000 years old. But I'm still interested in how much has gone on through the years, how even in my lifetime the village has gone through some changes. Some of these changes are for the better, some for the worse, but changes nonetheless. I came across some old RTE archival footage from 1971 recently, covering a story of some local boys who claimed to have seen the Virgin Mary appear in the old graveyard here. I was especially interested in this as the graveyard in question is just beside my estate, which didn't even exist back then. In the video they mentioned the cattle mart, that's where my estate is situated now, and you can see where the bakery is now, just an empty space 50 years ago. I spoke to a couple of locals about the story. One of the boys from the video was there himself, but didn't want to comment on its validity for whatever reason. Back then the locals didn't really want to question the story just in case it was true. You don't want to be a non-believer, of course. Reverend O'Doherty from UCD pops up in the video to say his piece, going on about how we shouldn't pay any attention to this alleged apparition, but I say it's far more interesting if we do. The story of the Virgin Mary isn't what's important to me, it's the fact that the story planted itself in the history of Taghmon and the identity of Taghmon. Surely not a single other village can say they had a visit from the Blessed Virgin. I was reminded of how my friend and I used to go mess around in the same graveyard just like those boys. We moved into Castle Court, that's the estate we're in now, when I was about 7. We used to live up in Chapel Street before that. That's by the chapel, believe it or not. When we first moved, up until I was too old to be playing around, we used to always go to the graveyard, collecting random old items like a glass bottle of milk of magnesia, and rusted scraps of iron we believed to be genuine Viking swords because we were stupid. It's a bit sad to see the empty cans and rubbish around here every so often. Even sadder is seeing empty baggies for steroids, but that's neither here nor there. I digress. Just outside the estate is the old keep. No, it's not a castle, no matter how many locals call it that. It's a keep or a tower house. It's sealed up now, but still quite the landmark in the middle of the village. There aren't many left in the county. Just beside that is the main street, which has changed vastly over the years, which is something that caught my eye when I first saw the old footage. My mother was around far longer than me, surprisingly. She remembers the way it used to be. It's interesting to hear people speak of what was, something no one will ever experience again. I got much of the little tales and tidbits I know of the village from a couple of short visits to my favourite pub, Alice Brady's. It's a lovely pub with lovely people, so you should visit sometime, trust me. The pub is full of old photographs and artefacts, and they even have an old ledger from 1920 stashed away. They have an amazing collection of everyday photographs, new and old, physical history of Taghmon and its people, hundreds of them just hidden away. Over a few pints the lads told me a few interesting tales, one being of an escaped lioness roaming around Taghmon. The lion had escaped Heckenberg Circus in the summer of 1939, prowling the area and scaring a few of the locals. Upon discovering it had killed a calf belonging to a farmer nearby, a small party headed out after it the following day, led by Marks Redmond, a farmhand working at the farm that was attacked. They managed to scare it out of the bushes, chasing it with their rifles in hand, firing at it as they charged on. After running out of bullets, the lioness was still alive, but too wounded to move. Marks Redmond beat it over the head with an iron bar, while he waited for more ammunition to arrive, eventually shooting it one more time to finish it off. A dramatic story with a dramatic ending. I hadn't heard that one before. Maybe I should go to the pub a bit more often. We spoke of the Mardi Gras, which used to be an important event in the village, starting in the year 1970. but I was much too young to remember the parades, as it stopped when I was a child, much like the St. Patrick's parades. The village is much quieter without these events. It's sad. It's an aspect of our village that's just gone like that. A sad story that I have to mention is that of the stuntman John Condren, who passed away during the Mardi Gras of 1982 at the age of 23. Condren had had a career as a stuntman for a few years at the time, at this point being a part of the Pat Whelan stunt team, which is quite the name for a group of stuntmen. The great stunt that was to be the end of him was a jump from our keep. He had done this kind of thing so many times it crossed nobody's mind that something could go wrong. He was a pro. He was to land on a pile of cardboard boxes on the path below, in front of a crowd of 2,000 people. Sadly, the boxes were just a few feet too far from the base of the tower. After John performed a somersault in the air, only his legs touched the boxes, meant to soften his fall, his back landing on the road beneath. John was pronounced dead on his way to the hospital. While a terribly sad story, it is a story nonetheless, so I'll tell you a short and sweet one to lighten the mood. Did you know a German paratrooper attempting to survey the weather and possible targets in the north accidentally landed here in Taghmon in 1941? He was supposed to land in Kildare, instead touching ground near the village and being caught the next day out by cameras. His name was Gunther Schutz. Lovely. Along the back street are a few houses and the clubhouse of the Viking Nomads Motorcycle Club. And I have another story I was somewhat amused at about this street. Allegedly, a while ago, a group of foreign women allegedly moved into one of the houses along the back street, whom were allegedly prostitutes that allegedly went around to the pubs handing out roses to advertise their services. It wasn't long before they were allegedly found out by the guards. Oh yeah, and at the top of this street is my old house. Like I said, we used to live up on Chapel Street, a very short walk away from St. Fintan's Church, which is over 300 years old now. The church I was christened in, made my communion in, and was confirmed in, despite not being a religious person now. Fintan, or Fintan in Irish, is the birth name of Saint Munna, who Taghmon is named after. The Irish name Teach Munna, meaning House of Munna. Just across the road from the church is my old primary school, also called St. Fintan's. Back when I was a child, my friend and I found running water in a ditch behind the school and thought we were amazing entrepreneurs, collecting the water in Ziploc bags, intending to sell it on as natural spring water or something along those lines. Sadly, the investors pulled out and we had to file for bankruptcy. Just across the street again is Tagmon's handball alley. My father and his father put in some work renovating it with some of the lads around the village to get it up and running again, just for it to end up ruined after a while. Someone robbed the showers from it, and there were crude drawings on the wall and plenty of waste left around. Since then, it has been done up properly again, with a mural on the side of it done by Natalie Dunn, who is getting married soon, actually. It seems to be in good nick so far, anyway, and I hope it stays that way. Just in front of the handball alley is the old wash pile, where everyone used to come and wash their clothes and collect fresh water. It's still here, of course, but nobody needs it anymore, and I don't think I'll be drinking from it anytime soon. Taghmon also has some connection to the 1916 Rising and other rebel ventures. In 1916, a priest by the name of Father Murphy was sent out to Taghmon from his native Ferns as a punishment for causing those loyal to the British problems by inciting rebellion in the locals, one of which methods he utilised was the sin of trying to teach the Irish language. We also have a monument dedicated to John Crane, Patrick Hogan and James Parle, young men executed by firing squad in 1923 at the Wexford Jail on Hill Street. Two of the men were from Taghmon, Parle and Crane, and they actually have a few rebel songs written after them. They were all executed for being IRA volunteers. Some of Parle's final words were, "Well, Father, I never felt so happy in my life," as the priest brought him out to be executed. And finally, "Shoot us again," after he and Crane were not killed after the first volley. What a man. Finally, I'll sign off with a song written and performed by a local legend, Tom Williams. Here's his song, A Fair Day in Taghmon. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do.
It's harder to remember now, my memory's dimmed by age, but names and dates oft prompt me, so I turn back a page that's filled with faces of old friends that are gone, with whom I used to barter on a fair day in Taghmon. Oh, those fair days on the 2nd and the 28th of May, there'd be folks from every barony and county there that day. The buyers with fat wallets from Dublin town would come, with an eye out for the Egypt on a fair day in Taghmon. Each farmer tried to place his stock where the buying men could look. Aye, and many had a spot marked out, be shop or yard or nook. There was Banville on the corner and Larroach further on, both true and honest dealers on a fair day in Taghmon. For calves you went to Sullivan, we Ledwith's shop along, and for Whitehead Stephen Martin, sure his name and stock were strong. And Joe Roach and Tom Crosby from a stand by the Monacon sold everything with legs on a fair day in Taghmon. Oh, for Kerry cows 'twas Horn, and for Shorthorns Big Jack Ryan, sure he towered above the Tangler like a man from another clime, aye. And many's the hungry schoolboy, and many's the mother's son, did a herding job for a couple of bob on a fair day in Taghmon. They'd start their journeys early from Cairn and Ross and Scar, and you'd hear the creels a-rattling on the spring and common car. As the songbirds chirped a welcome, through Harperstown they'd come, and to sell the beast they'd strive all morn on the fair day in Taghmon. Oh, the drovers all were out in force, there was Foley from the town, and Josie and John Condon knew Leinster up and down. They walked the roads of Ireland through counties one by one, and they drove them in their thousands from the fair day in Taghmon. The eating houses all were full, and the pubs were chock-a-block, while one man did the eating, sure another watched the stock. Breakfast was 1 and 6pence, and a halfpenny for the bun, and for ham and tea 'twas 2 and 3 on a fair day in Taghmon. What cod was there, and Jack Jones too, and the Tooheys with the dough, and leading up his horses was the famous Mossy Row, and the bargaining and the arguing, and when the day was done, there was many a happy farmer on a fair day in Taghmon. Ah, but many things have come and gone, and many things have changed, and the old style way of doing things has all been disarranged. The mart, they say, is better, but still I miss the fun that we had down in Fake Hayton's on a fair day.